What is up, guys? So this is going to be my review for the mid-season finale of The Flash Season 4, which is episode 9, titled Don't Run, which I think was a great title for this episode. The episode had two different storylines to it, one of them being pretty amazing, and the other one was just eh. The one that was eh was the Killer Frost Amina Black story. It was very mediocre. Amina Black is a pretty bad villain. She's so cheesy, it's insane, and her actress really overacts every single scene. She's just an overall bad villain. I still think that Iris having to choose between Barry and Caitlin is a little stupid, just because Iris being the leader of the team is stupid. Cisco should 100% be the leader of the team, and also for him, the decision would be so much better just because he's friends with both both Barry and Caitlin equally. I'm guessing Iris is barely friends with Caitlin, and she's married to Barry. So, although they do try to explain how they don't go after Barry because Barry can handle himself and Caitlin, I guess, can't, according to Iris. But I don't think they knew that she had the power dampener. Did they? Or did Harry see? I don't know. But either way, both of them were in equally vulnerable states, and both of them can handle themselves equally. So I don't know why Iris chose to go after Caitlin. It just didn't make sense considering she's barely friends with Caitlin. They've hung out like 3 times in total, and she's married to Barry. So it would make so much more sense for her to choose Barry, which is again why Cisco should have been the leader of the team when Barry's gone, and should have been the one to make this decision. That whole thing where Cisco and Harry and Ralph are saying how Killer Frost is so great to hang out with, we never actually saw that anywhere. They never hung out with Killer Frost in any episode. So I'm guessing it was in between an episode. I wish they would have shown us. I wish we would have shown us that scene maybe at the beginning of the episode, or maybe during episode 7 or something. I just wish we would have seen that scene so it would make sense. And just the whole thing where Caitlin's thinking, "Hey, Killer Frost is better than me." It wasn't a good storyline. It honestly dragged down that story a little bit. The story wasn't that great to begin with because that story dragged down the episode, but that whole side story of the side story dragged down the side story. Okay, the new character, Brainstorm, who was a pretty boring character for the most part until the end of the episode where he actually tied into the main story. He was just so monotone and boring. His powers were pretty lame. They somehow made telepathy lame just because of how he reacted to the telepathy. Like, he would read Caitlin's mind and then repeat it back like, "Oh, you think who is Killer Frost?" It was just so boring the way he reacted to telepathy that it made it lame. But thankfully, he and the whole story did tie into the main story, so it wasn't pointless. It was just not great. The main story, though, was really good. We see more of the Thinker's plan, which I think is Endgame, and this isn't my theory at all. It's a very popular theory, is that he wants to take over Barry's body, or at least get his speed, so that his body can withstand his mind, because right now it can't, or at least at least Clifford Devoe's body can't. Maybe Brainstorm's body can, but I doubt it, just because he has telepathy powers. His body he doesn't have a healing factor like Barry does. But again, that's not my theory, although I did have a theory about this season that I made a video about, and it actually came true. But I'll talk about that later because it was at the end of the episode. It was the big twist at the end of the episode. So, Barry got kidnapped by the Thinker, which I thought the actual scene where Devoe kidnapped Barry was kind of lame. Barry didn't really put up a fight. Devoe just shot him out of nowhere, which was actually pretty surprising. I didn't see that coming. And they were just walking by, and then Barry just got shot out of nowhere. I thought that was really cool, how the Thinker just came out of nowhere. But after that, Barry just runs right at the chair, and the chair has these arms like Dr. Octopus. By the way, this reminds me a lot of Dr. Octopus, the Thinker in general. But the Thinker has those arms that clenched Barry. And for some reason, Barry didn't try to get out of it. Like, by phasing through, he just flew away. The Thinker just flew away with Barry, which I thought was just a pretty lame. It was lame because Barry didn't really put up a fight. I just said that the Thinker reminds me of Dr. Octopus, and that he reminds me of Dr. Octopus for a couple of reasons. First of all, he has those those arms that comes out of his chair, just like Dr. Octopus has those arms. And also, in the comics, Dr. Octopus took over Spider-Man's body for like a year or two, and the Thinker wants to do the same thing with Barry to take over his body. So the parallels are really there, and I think that's really cool. So the whole part where Barry's in the speed-proof prison, I thought most of that was actually really, really entertaining and fun to watch, and also just really plot-driven. But he was only in there for like 2 scenes total. He was in there for 2 scenes, and then a third scene where he was in there for a couple seconds and then got out. I feel like he wasn't in the prison long enough, considering that was the main focal point of the synopsis, saying that Barry got kidnapped. But he was barely kidnapped. He was only in there for 2 scenes. Although those scenes, like I said, were really entertaining. The first one where Barry and Devoe are talking to each other, and Barry's asking Devoe about his plan, his endgame, and why he's been doing all this. I thought that was a really great scene. And also when Joe showed up and Barry's like, "You put a hand on him, you touch him, Devoe." That was just such a great scene. And then the last scene where he's in the prison, where he was in the prison for a couple of seconds and he gets out, I thought that was an amazing scene because it was just Barry thinking out of the box. Usually he just uses superpowers or somebody gives a speech so that he could win a fight, but here Barry really needed to think out of the box to get out of the prison. He makes himself invisible by vibrating too fast for the eye to process, and then Devoe opens the prison, and then Barry runs out. I thought that was a great scene showcasing Barry's intelligence, because usually Barry's intelligence is nowhere to be found. Usually he's like neutral about how smart he is. He's supposed to be really smart, and he is really smart because, I mean, he is a forensic scientist. But usually we don't get to see it, and it was just so great to see it in this scene where he got out of the speed-proof prison. And then they leave the speed-proof prison. But before I talk about that fight, I just want to talk about how cool Barry's suit looks in that blue light in the speed-proof prison. It looks so cool. His costume always looks cool. His season 4 costume, it's just such a cool costume. But in the light in the speed-proof prison, it's never looked better. It looks so awesome. And then the main villain versus main hero fight that almost every mid-season finale has is right after they teleport out of the speed-proof prison or the sanctuary or whatever they call it. And it was a little underwhelming. The whole fight was underwhelming. It was definitely a cool fight, but it was really short. It lasted like 1 minute, so I don't think that's long enough. Like, that's just why it was underwhelming. I would love to see a longer version of that fight in the future of the season, but for right now, it was just really underwhelming. But the last, like, 3 or 4 minutes was awesome. There's, like, 3 twists. First one being that Ambient is actually working for the Thinker, or at least the Thinker is like, paying Ambient to get metahumans, including Brainstorm. And the second one is that the Thinker is actually inside of Brainstorm, which I don't think will stick long because Neil Sandilands, the actor who plays the Thinker, is actually a main character, so I don't think that he'll be in Brainstorm's body for long. I think he will go back to Clifford Devoe's body, even though that body is dead, which is the third twist, which is the one I totally predicted at the beginning of the season, which is that Devoe frames Barry for somebody's murder, and I didn't think it would be the Thinker's murder. I didn't think it would be Clifford Devoe's murder, but it is. I just thought it would be somebody's murder. I made a theory video about that. Click in the top right corner of the video to watch it, and a lot of people, like right before I watched this episode, a lot of people told me I was right about the theory, which was a little spoilerific. I get spoiled a lot just because I can't watch these episodes until way later after they come out, which I can't blame anybody for, but again, it's a little annoying. But either way, I don't think the spoiler bothered me that much because still watching the plot twist, it was so awesome to watch. Like the whole time when Barry was walking into his house right before seeing Devoe's body, I was so nervous for Barry. I don't know why. I saw it coming. I theorized it, but I was just so nervous for Barry. And then when the police are knocking down the door and he's just looking at the picture of Iris and Barry and himself, and he just says, "Don't run." I actually really liked that. I loved that scene. That whole scene in general was awesome. And just like I said in the beginning of the episode, of the review, "Don't Run" was a great title for this episode. But in conclusion, the side story of this episode with Kaylin and Amelia Black was pretty bad. The new character, Brainstorm, was really boring. Although the main story of this episode was just awesome in general. The fight between the main villain and the main hero was a little short, but it was still a really good fight. And the plot twist at the end, all three of the plot twists were all awesome. I give this episode a 9.5 out of 10. Let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.